Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I don't need those for a minute. How are you all today? First off, welcome to everyone. Welcome to all of our new subscribers, both on YouTube and on Patreon. It's great to have you. For you newer people, I always say that I have the smartest commenters on both YouTube and Patreon. And if you're here, that's a good sign, so we welcome you. I say after you get done watching the video, go down and read the comments down here, because we have sharp people and you can probably learn some from the comments that maybe I didn't say or expanded on something that I did say in the video. And if you're a smart person, which I'm sure you are, feel free to participate and comment and let other people share your wisdom, or put in a question or two. Chances are, if I don't answer it, somebody will. One thing is, we're polite here. We don't argue. We don't call people out. We display what I like to call conspicuous courtesy in our communications with each other. And if we do that, then everybody's happy. I want to talk today about the deadliness of reality. And it's something that I think most people don't understand. Many don't have a clue about. And what made me think about this is this morning I put up a short YouTube video. It wasn't mine. I put it from somebody else over on the Patreon channel, about some idiot tourist up in Yellowstone. We were up there about a month ago, and we saw people going up and wanting to pet the buffalo, and stuff like this. Well, this is one. This shows this idiot. He sees his buffalo over laying down behind the trees, and he's walking over there, and he's going, "Hello, hello, hi, can I pet you? Can I ride you?" And it's a head scratcher, So if you want to watch that, go over there and you'll find it on Patreon. Also on Patreon, I posted today a video, how to choose a martial arts school. That was in response to one of our patrons who asked. And one of the things about Patreon, one of the many things about Patreon, and if you want to come over, the link is to join us just down there. It says how to come over to Patreon or something like that. I have a tendency to answer questions from the patrons, because that lets you email me, and then they, if they have something they particularly want me to address or make a video on, I enjoy doing that. So that's fine. This one was how to choose a martial arts school, which is very tough, because most of them aren't worth a darn, to be real honest. There are not many at all. If you're new, I have a background in martial arts. I was in it for years and years. I taught for years. I published a martial arts magazine. And in that, while I'm explaining how to choose a martial arts program in school, I talk a little bit about the history of the martial arts and how it grew in the United States, and going clear back to when Joe Louis and Chuck Norris came back and got out of the service, and how they and Ed Parker and Bruce Lee were instrumental in building this, and Jim Harrison and those, and how the very popularity of the martial arts resulted in the watering down of so much of it, not from those guys, but from other people who wanted to jump on and make money. And that's why it's so hard to find a good place to take. But I talk about how to do that. And the reason that I put that over there, if you're wondering, you say, well, I'd like to hear that, and I'm not on Patreon. Well, here's the reason, and I don't know if I have explained this recently. There are a number of things that I talk about that people are extremely interested in. Okay, martial arts is one, guns is another, gun fighting is another, organized crime is another. The situation in Northern Ireland, the IRA, is another. All of those things I have, quite a bit of experience in, and so I talk about it. The problem is this, is that when I talk about those things, the world is so full of people who have read a magazine article or two, or seen a movie, or whatever. They think that they have learned, they think they know something, so they'll come into the comments, they'll start spouting off about stuff which they're usually entirely wrong. And then I've got to come in and clean it up because I won't let wrong information stand in the comments because I don't want people to be misled. And or I'll call them out, which if I have to, I do, or I boot them, which I hate to do. I don't like to kick people off. I only usually do that if somebody's particularly snotty or argumentative. So that's why. That's kind of specialized information. And anybody who's over on Patreon will tell you it is well worth your time and your money to come over to Patreon. And I'll tell you how I feel about it. I'll tell you the truth. It's only $1 to be over there. It's not like the dollar is so important, but it's kind of a management tool that I use because it kind of weeds out the tourists and the people who aren't serious. Anybody who is serious about preparedness or survival or any of those things, if they don't have $1 to invest, $1 a month to invest in their own education and understanding about things, I don't think they're serious. And when I say that, I'll always have a couple of people say, well, I'm serious about it, but can't afford $1. Look, if you can't afford $1, you have no business. I don't know what you're doing, to be real honest. I mean, you can go out and pick up cans off the side of the road today and get $1. So that's an excuse. That's a person who's using it as an excuse. And to be honest, those people can't be helped. And that's going to make somebody mad. I don't care. I've dealt with excuse makers all of my life, and I realize what the situation is. So anyway, that's the deal on that. I have a couple more things before we get, and I think you're going to enjoy these. Let me put you on pause for just a moment because I have to go turn off the microwave. Okay, I was home alone, and then my daughter just got home. Kelly's away. She doesn't know that I'm going to about to do what I'm going to do. Before that, I just started working on the Audible of the Reversion today. I know a lot of you have been asking about it. We're going to do it kind of a special way, and I'll tell you what, reading your own work is tough. It's tougher than you think. You'd be surprised how many words you'd stumble over, and I find it interesting. I remember Rush Limbaugh when he came out with his Rush Revere books. He said on his radio program, wow, this is the hardest work I've ever done, is doing the audibles for these books. And now I understand it. It's different, but it's fun. It's going to be fun. And I know a lot of you are looking forward to it. I am really looking forward too. So anyway, I'm working on that. Hopefully, we'll have the first parts up in a couple of weeks. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm not sure if that's too optimistic or not, but we'll see. I'll do my best, right? I'm still working on the 6th book of the Stonemont series I should have said that. This is brought to you by the Stonemont series. There's going to be a lot of people here now that say, you just want to sell your books and get to Patreon and all that. Well, yeah, that's what I do for a living. I'm a writer. But what Kelly doesn't know, some of you have asked about her soap. Okay, she's getting ready for some big shows coming up, and actually, I can't tell you that part. So yes, she makes beautiful soaps. There's one. I just picked these up off a table. She's got a bunch working on it. Here's a mechanics soap that it's got pumice and all sorts of cool stuff in it. I don't know what's in any of these, so I'm not going to make a very good commercial. This is cool. I love that. I use that. This is a sliced. When these come, she does them in loaves. I'll show you how to do this. She does them in loaves like this. This is a mechanic's soap. And it's got, like I say, pumice and all sorts of stuff that washes that grease off your hands real well. Anybody, if you're a working person, and man, it smells good. When she makes them, here's one that she's made with an ocean theme. See that? And she'll be cutting that later. And she had made another ocean theme, slightly different in colors. There, and she just gave me something. She's making these for the new shows. This is what is it? It's a coffee sugar rub. I act like I know what I'm talking about, right? I don't know if you can see it in there, but let me see. And oh man, I wish you could smell it. It's unbelievable. It smells like coffee and vanilla and I don't know what else. I should have had to write it down, but it is something. And on the top are 3 real coffee beans, and I have some plans about some things that I'm not going to share with you quite yet. Anyway, that takes the first part of the video. But I thought you all would like to hear all that and see all that. I'm going to read a section out of the Reversion for a minute because it talks about reality. And most people don't have a grasp of reality. And it's their failure to understand reality quickly enough that's going to result in a lot of people having big problems. If everything crashes, like the scenario in my books, a lot of people are going to be killed because they will not accept reality in time. That's the thing. A lot of people don't understand what's going on until later. If they're dead, it's too late. If they're not dead, it may still be too late to cause them a whole lot of pain and trouble. But it's the ability to recognize and understand developing situations, especially emergency or horrendous, threat situations in time, that makes all the difference. I know that, people talk about the OODA loop. That's essentially what it is. But you need to have a grasp of the realities of the world. I'm going to read a section here out of the Reversion. That's the first book in the Stonemont series. That a lot of people found. I won't read the gory part. I won't read the gruesome part. The gruesome part comes after what I'm about to read, but I'll set up the scenario. And at first, some people had some problems with this. Well, not most people. Most people enjoyed it and saw it exactly for what it was. But I did have people say, "Well, I don't know. I just don't think that was right at all." And then I would go back and I would show, look, I explained why this had to be done. But still, and most of them, if I had a chance to sit down and talk with them about it, eventually most of them came around, even though they didn't want to. They finally had to admit, oh, okay, I guess I see it. But if everything collapsed, even if something came short of collapse, those of you guys who have been, I know we have law enforcement here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you folks who have been in the military, who have been in combat situations, you know what I'm talking about. There are realities that the average person just has difficulty grasping. And the first time they come up against it, they have a tendency to freeze, to block it out, and that can be dangerous to them and other people. Just like that idiot with the buffalo. He didn't realize buffaloes can kill you, and they're not pets, and no, they don't want to be ridden. Okay? They talk about population control, and I heard somebody say, all we have to do is remove all the warning labels on everything. Let the idiots kill themselves. It would probably happen. To set the scenario of what I'm going to be talking about here, EMP is hit. Everything's down. Mike, who was one of the main characters, who was a former law enforcement, Christian former law enforcement, and then Mike, who was a paramedic and a former Marine, are walking to get to Stonemont. They've stopped a place overnight. They wake up to see a group of 3 guys, 3 dirtbags, attacking a family. They've beaten the father. They've been attempting to rape the wife and the daughter, and they come up. They put a stop to it, and now the bad guys are tied up. Here's the scene. Christian looked at each of them, then spoke to Bill. We have to decide what we're going to do with them. Ann spoke up. Shouldn't we just hand them over to the police? I wish we could, said Christian. The problem is that we don't know where the police are, or even if there are any police anymore. What do you mean? Asked Bill. Well, since Mike and I started walking day before yesterday, we've passed several abandoned police cars. No sign of anyone. The shotguns were taken out, but otherwise they were just locked up sitting there. Well, surely there's a police station we can take them to somewhere. Christian shook his head. You were on the highway when your car shut down, so other than yourself and the few cars around you, you don't know the extent of it. We came from a hospital in Leavenworth. That's about 30 miles from here. Everything shut down, and I mean everything. Even the police substation across the street. No electricity anywhere. No radio communication. All vehicles stopped. And come to think of it, I haven't noticed any planes flying. He wondered how to express what he thought had happened. EMP, said Anne, as if reading his mind. Christian looked at her. You know about that? Mom's an electrical engineer, said Tracy. She's been warning us about this for years. She looked at her mom apologetically. I'm afraid we didn't pay much attention. A coronal mass ejection, or CME, was a virtual certainty, said Anne. But from what we're seeing, cars not running, radio communications still off, I'd say we have a nuclear-induced EMP. Christian looked at her with new respect. Anne looked like she would be most comfortable baking cookies or organizing a charity event, but there was obviously a lot more to her than that. He nodded. That's what I've been thinking. We can assume that it's widespread, but we don't know how widespread or whether we're in the middle of it or on the edge of it or which edge. Would you agree with that? 100%, replied Anne. There's no way to know at this point, at least until we make contact with an unaffected area. Christian nodded again. That's what I mean. What happens to these three depends entirely on what we do with them. Here's where reality's setting in. He looked at each member of the family individually, then continued. We can't take them with us. They would slow us down, and we don't have the resources to properly guard, feed, and otherwise care for them. And they would remain a constant danger to us. We can't just let them go because we know they would be a danger to anyone else who came into contact with them. Essentially, we would be responsible for any harm that came to those people. And from what we've seen from them, that harm could be great. Couldn't we just leave them here tied up? Asked Tracy. That's the daughter. Christian shook his head. He saw that Bill was about to say something, but he wanted to make their choices clear before opening it up for discussion. No. If we did that, someone might come along and untie them, not realizing who or what they are, and that person might get hurt or worse. It would be like leaving a booby trap behind. And if no one found them, they would die of dehydration in a few days. We would essentially have tortured them to death. And finally, I don't feel we can morally kill them since they didn't kill anyone here. That's what we have to discuss. You were the victims here, so you need to decide. You need to be involved in making the decision. Everyone was silent for a few moments. Anne and Tracy were both looking at Bill, who was looking at the three on the ground. After another moment, Bill looked at Christian. You've described the quandary very well, young man. I'm a lawyer. In fact, I've been a judge for the past 15 years. The question of just punishment for criminal actions is one that has been asked for thousands of years. The answers to the question have been many and varied. He looked back at the three thugs. If what we suspect is true, we find ourselves in a time like those before functional central or even tribal government. At that time, and even during the first evolutions of authority, retributions for wrongs was largely felt to be a personal matter. Punishment was decided and administered by the victims or their representatives. Bill looked around at the others, then continued. Christian has listed the unacceptable choices. Unacceptable, at least to us, at our current understanding of civilized and humane behavior. But he has not, and I expect purposely, suggested the solution which best satisfies the demands of justice, while also serving to warn others of criminal threat. He looked at Christian. That solution is to mark and disable them. Christian nodded. Have you given thought to what should be done specifically? Bill asked. Christian nodded again. They need to be marked in a way that brings attention to them and can't be easily hidden. They need to be physically disabled in a way that reduces their threat to others in the future. He paused. Now think about this. Think about this. This is it in the world without rule of law, when everything's come down, and they have decided that that's the world that they're in. He paused, looking at each of the family members in turn. He was fairly sure that Mike would understand the necessity of what he was about to propose, but he questioned whether the family would. He was about to go on when Bill spoke again. Historically, marking has included the removal of various body parts, including the ears and nose, as well as permanent marking of the skin, such as tattooing or branding, usually on the face where it cannot be easily hidden, except by the wearing of a mask, which alerts others in itself. I wrote this before they wanted everybody to wear a mask. Disabling has included cutting the tendons of the hamstrings, castration, the breaking of bones and joints, and more recently, limb punishment shootings, which includes kneecapping, but also the shooting of elbows, wrists, and ankles, depending on the severity of the violation. He looked around at the group. In answer to your unasked question, yes, I believe this is appropriate in this situation. I agree, said Christian, but I think each person should have the opportunity to either include or exclude themselves from this decision. Christian looked at Mike, who just nodded. Bill nodded. When he turned to Ann and Tracy, he was surprised but glad to see both of them nod yes. Christian looked at Bill. Judge, in the absence of any sentencing guideline, I'd be interested to know what your suggestion would be for punishment. Bill remained quiet for several minutes while looking at the three thugs laying on the ground. Then he turned back to the others. I've spent a few minutes thinking about what they did and what I believe in my heart they would have done if they hadn't been stopped. I have also thought about what they may well do to others if the punishment we administer is not sufficient. But there is one more aspect I would like to consider before coming to a conclusion, and that is intent. He looked at his wife and daughter, his eyes welling with tears. We know what they said before the physical assault began, but after that, all I could hear was him telling me they were going to make me watch before they killed me. And I heard your screams. His voice choked. Did they say anything to you? Ann and Tracy looked at each other, their eyes also brimming with tears, but mouths set in anger. Ann spoke. The one who was holding me and said I was next after they were done with Tracy. Tracy was unable to keep her tears from spilling over any longer, but as they trailed down her cheeks, her eyes showed plainly that they were tears of rage, not fear. The one who was on me said I was a fighter, but he was going to take the fight out of me, and the others could have me when he was done. The group looked at each other closely, then at the three on the ground. The family's initial shock was dissipating and giving way to deep rage. Christian was the first to speak. Judge, I think we all knew what their intentions were, but in my opinion, this new information, the fact that they plainly told their victims what they intended to do, removes any reasonable doubt and should be taken into consideration for appropriate punishment. I withdraw my objection to execution. Everyone looked at Christian, no one speaking for a full minute as each internalized the full meaning of what he had said and came to their own acceptance of it. Finally, Bill said quietly, "We'll carry out the sentence as soon as we're ready to go." Okay, that was, if you heard me stumble over my words a number of times, that's what makes reading for Audible so difficult because, that was, don't worry, the Audible, because I've decided, as people ask me, to be the reader myself. It won't sound like that. That's what makes it so hard when I stumble over something. Whoops, got to go back and do it again because it's got to sound right. I want the guy driving down the road at 2:00 in the morning, listening to this. I don't want him to have to listen to my fumble a word or something like that, or you all just wanting to relax and listen to it. So that's what makes it tough. But the whole purpose of that, let's see how we're doing, the whole purpose of that was that this was reality. And reality, if you don't make the right decisions, reality can be deadly. And most people don't have the life experience or some of the judgment, to be honest, to make the proper decisions in those real life and death situations. People have asked me, well, how do I get that? How do I get that? Well, you can't get a reality without living reality. You can't read about reality. Although that helps, read my books and you'll learn a lot. You will learn a lot. But it has to go farther than that. You have to internalize it. You have to visualize. You have to develop your ability to make correct decisions, the right decision. And sometimes and oftentimes that's not the nice decision. The decisions that seem nice nowadays can get you killed in a real situation. Remember the one that we talked about the other day, I forget if it was on here or just on Patreon, about the two kids that stopped for the woman saying she needed help in the national park, and when they pulled over, she pulled a gun on them, marched him back into the room and into the woods and killed the young man. Okay, today's the decisions that work in the world as it is today could cost you your life in a world after a collapse. But here's something else to keep in mind, is that even though the world as a whole seems fairly normal, there are little local collapses all the time. Every time somebody is attacked, that's a collapse. Every time somebody is murdered, raped, mugged, whatever, that is a societal collapse in that spot. And the inability or refusal to make the correct decision can not only affect you, but others. So that was a point that I wanted to make in this. Hopefully it came through. Think about it. Develop, mind game it. Think about what is right. Take a little trip down ethics lane and morals lane and all these things, and realize that legal, moral, ethical, not always the same, but find what you think to be right, so that when the time comes, you're able to make the right decisions through the right prism, through the right lens, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and others. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Hope you all enjoyed seeing some of Kelly's soaps. You ought to smell them. You ought to smell it. And I know many of you are looking forward to the Audible coming out. Now that I'm working on it, I hope I'm not going to promise, because now I see how hard it is, but I'm going to be working at it. And remember, if you haven't read this series yet, our sponsor, my books, the Stonemont series, How to Get Them, is right down below. You can get them through Amazon in paperback or Kindle, or you can get autographed copies directly from me. And the way to do that and the address is down below. If you want that extra content, like today's about martial arts training, come over and join us on Patreon. If you're serious about this stuff, you need to be over there. Simple as that. And everybody in the world can afford $1. And if somebody can't, really, they need to be doing, well, I won't say that. I mean, if this is your entertainment to watch YouTubes, okay, that's good. And I won't put anybody down for that. But for the people who say that they're serious about preparing, you need to be to the Patreon accounts of not just me, but others. Okay? And that's their, for those who put extra content on their Patreon accounts. And it supports the cause. Okay? So anyway, you all, hope you've gotten something out of this. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And do something to prepare today. Whatever that may be. come join us on Patreon. That'll be a good way to start. And you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you probably tomorrow. Bye-bye.